right, we are ready to roll here in one of our extravaganza productions. We have Brad Blanton with us in the studio for a featured guest conversation. And sometimes we call it an interview, sometimes a conversation. He's also known as Dr. Brad Blanton. He returns to the show once again to impart his wisdom and radical nature on critical issues of the times, both in audio, I might mention, for our radio audience, and also doing this in video. So we have a two-camera shoot for YouTube and our websites. And before going further, I want to give a more detailed bio and introduction in a moment, but we have others in the studio. I want to introduce our guest that Brad has brought along, Marina. Do you know her last name?
Marina Durbin? Are you going by Durbin now?
Okay, Marina Durbin, sitting behind Brad in our sofa back there, and then introduce Ann, if you would.
Ann Breyer.
Ann Breyer, who's come from where?
She's come all the way from Maine. She's a maniac.
A maniac, okay. I like that. And I also had Elizabeth Rose, our co-host on our radio show, also in the studio, and a good friend and associate, Clifford Carnicom, who has so kindly brought his camera over here for a two-camera shoot. He is also a researcher and scientist and founder of the Carnicom Institute. We are all gathered here in the name of truth and love, I might add, which I have metaphorically likened to the two sides of a coin. They fit each other, they're essential to each other, and hopefully we'll get deeper into that. So yeah. I welcome everybody.
Good. Me too.
Okay. Now I want to do a little more of a bio on you here. Who and what of Brad Blanton, PhD. He is a best-selling author, psychotherapist, seminar leader, trainer, and founder of the Center for Radical Honesty. His first book was titled Radical Honesty: How to Transform Your Life by Telling the Truth. Published in the mid-90s, Brad was first a guest on our show discussing radical honesty in May of 1996. A new revised edition of Radical Honesty was published in 2005. Other of Brad's books, which we have conversed about on air, include Practicing Radical Honesty: How to Complete the Past, Live in the Present, and Build a Future with a Little Help from Your Friends. That was released in 2001. Radical Parenting: 7 Steps to a Functional Family in a Dysfunctional World. That was released in 2003. It is an interview gem on our website at transradio.com, and also a print article in 2 parts. That's also on our website. Honest to God: A Change of Heart That Can Change the World with Neil Donald Walsh in 2002. The Truth Teller: Stories of Success by Radically Honest People in 2004. And the one book, which I understand is a novel I missed with Brad, but maybe we'll get that published in 2008, is titled Beyond Good and Evil: The Eternal Split-Second Sound Light Being. How do we miss that?
I don't know.
All right. We'll get to that.
It was my first novel, and I didn't do much to promote it. I just thought I needed it to be a screenplay, so when it's a screenplay, it'll become more.
Well, I like the title of it. Are we headed into that as soundlight beings? Is that part of the story?
Well, we may be headed into it faster than we think.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about that. All right. And I might mention, of course, this is the reason we're together, the Korporate Kannibal Kookbook. The empire is consuming us. Either we eat them or they eat us, so let's get cooking, or cooking, as the vernacular. And this has just been out a matter of days?
It has, just a few days. It actually has a different subtitle on the front than it has on the interior front cover.
Do you want to give the alternatives?
The alternative subtitle.
This is the only book that has an alternative subtitle and an alternative table of contents, I might add.
That's right. The Korporate Kannibal Kookbook: Recipes for Ending Civilization and Avoiding Collective Suicide.
Okay. So let us begin on the Korporate Kannibal Kookbook. By the way, everything with a K. Any significance to that? Or are we emulating 3 Ks from prior years, or just
We're emulating 3 Ks from prior years, and also emulating the sort of I guess the Nazi sort of spelling with everything in the beginning of a K, because it's basically we're living in a fascist empire right now.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that. Here you're a little kinder. It's the empire. but fascism has been thrown around a lot lately. Let's talk a little bit about your work on this. And I got to say, there's no radical in the title. And as you know, you've had a lot of radicals in your title, but I think this is probably more radical in your nature than some of the prior written materials in your work. Would you say you've reached a point of high radicalness, high degree?
I don't know. I think probably my most radical book was Radical Parenting, where I told people to keep their kids out of school. Just get stoned and play with them once in a while, and don't worry.
I think that's why we put it as an interview, Jen, because it's very good about what you spoke, but radical parenting. All right, so let's...
but this is fairly radical.
It is fairly...
Cannibal Cookbook, I just discovered the answer to global warming, and I had to put it out there, so...
Well, we'll talk about that. I might add that because it's so radical, I thought I would have to, in part, in my role here, take on the angel's advocate. I think I mentioned that to you on the phone this morning. I don't like devil's advocate, so I want to be the angel's advocate. And again, getting back to holding you to the...
I like arguing with angels this time.
Okay, and keeping this truth and love in balance.
Yeah.
All right. So what stimulated this cookbook and decisive rant on empire and really the dysfunctional rich in our country and in our world right now?
Part of it has to do with growing older. I just turned 70, and I've been thinking about my life because I've been working on my autobiography for the last few years. And I was actually working away on my autobiography, and I ended up interrupting that and writing the Korporate Kannibal Kookbook. Because what happened to me in writing my autobiography is I was proud of what I'd done, what I'd written, and how many people I'd helped in my workshops and what good I'd done in the world. But I was also kind of trying to sum up the full result of my activism as a civil rights protester and participant in the anti-Vietnam War movement and the anti-war movements of these most recent wars. And
were you a hippie in the earlier days?
I was.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were, and I'm using that in a positive context. The last real attempt at revolution was during the '60s in this country, and so you were in the midst of that.
Yeah, I was in Haight-Ashbury in the Summer of Love, and I was in lots of places like that.
And you studied with one of the great psychotherapist, psychologist, authors of the time. I think you were very close to this guy. You want to talk about Fritz Perls?
Yeah.
I read In and Out of the Garbage Pail as one of my early pieces that said, I'm on the wrong track here. I'm going the wrong way. I need to change. You want to talk about your background?
I loved In and Out of the Garbage Pail, and actually my biography is called
In and Out of the Garbage Pail.
No, it's some new kind of trailer trash. That's the name of my book, my biography, because people can tell from listening to me that I'm basically trailer trash.
You were born on the other side of the tracks, as they say.
Yeah. But I am some new kind of trailer trash, and so was Fritz. I mean, basically, In and Out of the Garbage Pail was his sort of confessional biography, and mine's confessional as well.
And you've studied with him a long time, and you've been teaching
I've been practicing Gestalt therapist for many years and taught Gestalt therapists and things like that.
And that's probably how the Radical Honesty trainings and groups function. I would imagine there's a hot seat there too sometimes for some of the participants.
Yeah, there is.
Okay. So
I was looking at all this, and what made me quit and write this book was I realized that all this good that I'd done, so-called good that I'd done, all the help I'd done to people, actually helped further the empire. I did all this wonderful work in the context of a poisonous, rotten culture, which is destructive to the world, that I've been helping with the that which I'm opposed, that I've earned money and participated in the economy and been a citizen and paid taxes, and that my taxes went for damage to human beings and I've gotten more and more resentful of not having actually any power to actually influence the economic order, because the power to influence the economic order is owned by the heads of the empire, the multi-billionaires.
Okay. So let's take our first break here. That gives people a sense of we are going to take on the empire
Mm-hmm.
and the wealthy, particularly ill-gotten gains over who knows how long, in the Korporate Kannibal Kookbook, and we're doing this in 10-minute segments so that we can keep this on YouTube in the video here, unless the censors take it off at another time. But so far, so good. We'll take a break. We're coming back. We're talking with Brad Blanton here.